With a ton of hype around Tom Hardy's interpretation of the infamous alien symbiote surrounding its release, fans everywhere couldn't be more excited to sink their teeth into Venom. Its cast is amazing, and the movie is a ton of fun, but as always, we have a few questions about some things that just didn't quite add up in the end. Oh, and this will contain a ton of spoilers for the movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, proceed with caution. Why not take a second to hit the red subscribe button, and while you're at it, ring that notification bell to keep up with the latest from ScreenRant. Promise we won't bite your head off. So we know that Eddie Brock is an investigative reporter and seems to be pretty good in his field. But on the other hand, it seems like he's basically the luckiest journalist in the world, as he just casually passes his fiance's computer at the exact moment she receives a top secret email in the middle of the night with no password protecting it. Not only are people sending emails way outside of normal office hours, it's all just a little too convenient for our pal Eddie. While fighting aliens and supervillains does seem like it would require some special training, the absolute uselessness of the police in pretty much every comic book movie is actually pretty hilarious, and Venom is no different. During a massive chase scene between Eddie and Drake's goons all across San Francisco, there is not a single cop to be found. And later, the SWAT team completely tip off Venom of their tactical plans by shouting about them in front of him. Come on, guys, you can do better than that. You'd think with how we all have a small computer in our pockets these days that sending information to your boss proving that an evil corporation is testing on humans would be as easy as sending an email. But not for Eddie Brock, it isn't. He instead chooses to literally scale a building from the outside in order to leave his phone on his boss's desk. While we admire him for being so unashamedly extra and dedicated to the truth to climb the outside of a skyscraper, it might be a bit much. There are 4 symbiotes in the movie, and much like the Power Rangers, they are color coordinated. Venom is black, Riot is silver, there is a blue one that is sent after Dr. Dora, and then there is the yellow one, which just completely disappears, no questions asked. You'd think that there would be someone keeping an eye on the top secret and extremely dangerous alien creature, even if it is a friendly Easter egg color, but at some point we just completely lose track of it. The question of what exactly Venom's powers are is a little bit hard to follow throughout the movie. When we first meet him, he can sense someone approaching and tells Eddie not to open the door they're concealed behind. But later, a drone is completely capable of sneaking up on them in an alley, and then a car comes out of nowhere to annihilate Eddie and Venom on a motorcycle during a car chase. Where did that sweet, almost Spidey sense go during those extremely crucial moments? So, the Life Foundation has been studying symbiotes in their top secret bad guy lab for a while now, and yet in some ways they seem pretty unprepared for any sort of mishap. Since they seem to know so much about the alien creatures, why on earth didn't they develop any sort of contingency plan or weapon against them, should something unexpected go down? They know that the aliens are not a fan of sound over 600 hertz, so couldn't their security have been armed with some sort of boombox, at the very least? Another weird thing about the goings-on in the lab is how they ever managed to get those pesky symbiotes back into their little cage tubes. The blue one is shown doing a ton of damage, first on the human volunteer, and then again on poor Dr. Dora, and yet it somehow ends up back in its kennel like a puppy with a tendency to ruin your favorite shoes if it's left out at night. It couldn't get close enough to physically put it back, so how did it get in there? The symbiotes are extremely mysterious creatures, and Venom might be the most mysterious of them all, but not for the reason that you might think. One of the oddest things about this man-eating supervillain is how much he gets really emotional. Now that's not to say that giant alien monsters have any less right to express their emotions than any of us, but he does seem to cry kind of a lot. He even cries as he tells Eddie that he wants to stay on Earth with him. It's established that any sound over 600 hertz does a lot of damage to the symbiotes, and also that fire is extremely fatal to them, which is all well and good except for the fact that there is so much fire in this movie, and it really seems to do nothing at all to any of them. They're practically bathed in it more than once and come out totally scot-free. Listen, I burned my fingers on a piece of toast this morning, and that apparently did more damage than literally being set ablaze did to Venom. Oh, Dr. Dan, where did you get your medical training? Online? Remind me never to make an appointment with him for even the smallest of maladies. Because when it comes to spotting when someone's heart is actually decaying inside their body, Dr. Dan took way too long to clue into that Agatha Christie mystery. Even those of us who don't know how to read an MRI scan could see the giant black substance eating away at Eddie Brock. Good old Dr. Dan sent him home to take a Tylenol. For a very shady top-secret organization like the Life Foundation, they really don't seem to have the security to match. Eddie is able to stroll on in, mess around, get himself infected with an alien symbiote, and moonwalk out of there with absolutely no interruptions. Is there not a single camera in the entire facility? How about anybody who works there? Paul Blart Mall Cop, you around? Nobody? Alright. There is something sweet about this level of trust, especially when it comes to giant laboratories of evil. One of the scenes early on that establishes Dr. Drake and Life Foundation's truly bad guy behavior is when a human is volunteered to be a test subject for one of the symbiotes. As you can guess, it doesn't end well for him. And yet, even though they have no control over the flesh-hungry alien, it doesn't attack anyone else, not even the other scientists who are in the room. Over the course of the movie, we are definitely given a ton of clues that Dr. Drake is really not a very nice man. He's got the whole murdering people with his alien experiments thing, threatening Dr. Dora and her family, and a general evilness about him. And then he has two totally random interactions with kids that really stick out. He hilariously talks over a little girl while telling her to not let herself be talked over, and then interacts super awkwardly with a little unaccompanied girl infected with symbiote for no apparent reason. Venom's powers come into question again a little later in the movie, in a scene when he is telling Eddie about Riot's plan to invade Earth. The only big question that Eddie asks is, how does Venom know? Venom basically just says that he knows all, and has access to all of Eddie's memories. Which is super confusing because Riot's plans aren't in Eddie's memories, and then later, Venom asks Eddie who Anne is, Eddie's ex-fiancée, Anne, who presumably he has at least one memory of, seeing as how they lived together and were gonna get, I don't know, married. The Dr. Dora storyline is confusing in and of itself, as she seems to just give up on her convictions at the drop of a hat. Drake is threatening her children, which is obviously terrible, but then just gives up Eddie within 1 minute of gentle questioning from the same man who has been threatening her. On top of that, Drake hires and fires a ton of scientists from his top-secret program, which just seems like some seriously lax security protocols to begin with. For most of us, the qualities of a good host are someone who makes you feel at home, who has a fresh towel for you, and ideally, someone who will indefinitely loan you their Netflix password, Karen. For the symbiotes, it's someone who won't fight back as they take over their body and mind and use them up until they die. So, same difference. Eddie is constantly fighting back against Venom and has free will, even when the suit is on, and yet they continually describe him as the ideal host. There's obviously a much deeper connection between Eddie and Venom than we can really understand, which is made obvious at the end when Eddie willingly allows Venom back into his body, even though he knows that the symbiote is rotting him from the inside. After all that mayhem goes down, Venom just pops back into Eddie's life and the two happily conjoin once again. Wouldn't Eddie resist the thing that is slowly killing him? Venom has some pretty interesting dietary requests at the end of the movie that are a little confusing. Suddenly, the creature who has been cuckoo for cannibalism for the last hour and a half casually requests chocolate and tater tots. Now, chocolate and tater tots are delicious and part of a healthy, balanced breakfast, but it does kinda come out of nowhere from our friend Venom, who has been basically a vampire up to this point. Good for him, though, for finally discovering the joy of chocolate and tater tots. Eddie Brock's ex-fiancée, Anne, is a lawyer, which means that she is a smart lady who definitely has her own set of skills. Skills which, somewhat inexplicably, also include some pretty serious tech know-how. Firstly, she knows how to start up an MRI machine like she has done it 1,000 times, and then later is able to program a random computer to connect with the lab's sound system and blast a deafening 600 Hz sound in time to take down Riot. The final showdown between Venom and Riot is extremely epic, and everything we could hope after all of the build-up. But the strange thing about it is that apparently it all went down in the span of 4 minutes. Drake sets his rocket to launch in 5 minutes, and by the time the insane fight is over, there is still 1 whole minute before it takes off. Maybe these aliens are just extremely efficient, or Anne is really a tech genius who got that sound working at record speed. While on one hand, we love Eddie and want him to get away and live the life he deserves, on the other, kinda deserves to go to prison for, like, a bunch of murders? The police actually watched him become Venom and chow down on a handful of humans, and yet at the end of the movie, he pretty much achieves all of his dreams. He's promoted, gets an amazing interview, and wins back Anne's affections. Now again, yay for Eddie, but also, jail? Well, it wouldn't be a Marvel movie without a Stan Lee cameo, and Venom definitely delivers that. But usually it's just a little hidden moment or peeking out in the corner of the frame in order to give fans a thrill. This one is pretty huge, with a newly reunited Venom and Eddie bumping into Stan on the street. Rather than just going on his way, he wishes that the two of them can work it out with Anne. It's only a matter of time before he is starring in his own movie at this point. Riot's entire plan for world domination was to return to his planet, gather up an army of his kind, and come back to Earth to wreak havoc. The problem with this is that they don't actually know where Earth is. The symbiotes were brought here by force and therefore don't know the coordinates or even a ship to go home in. Also, Riot claimed he needed Venom before he could leave. But couldn't they have just picked him up when they arrived the second time? Like a Stan Lee cameo, the post-credits and mid-credit scenes are things we have come to expect from every Marvel-affiliated movie. They're usually fun teasers of what's to come, or they open up a cliffhanger and get us excited for the sequel. For Venom, the mid-credit scene introduced us to the hilariously named Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson in a baffling wig. He gives us a little hint that Carnage is coming, which fans of the comics immediately recognized. Ooh, we smell a sequel. And those with the dedication to wait until the very end of the credits, past the special thanks and names too tiny to read, were rewarded with a post-credit scene that actually seemed like it had nothing at all to do with the movie. It was actually an animated sneak peek at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. While the first look at Miles Morales was awesome, it made us wonder if there is any connection between the two movies at all. It seems unlikely, but with Marvel, anything could happen. Confusing moments and questions aside, Venom was still totally awesome, and we can't wait to see what happens next. What did you think of the movie? Did you notice any other moments that stuck out to you? Let us know down below, and don't forget to subscribe to ScreenRant on your way out.